Okay, so now this brings me to the dot-com bubble, right? That happened in the early '90s, right? Where the internet was fresh in the market and everybody was so excited, and then boom, it all crashed, right?
Yeah.
And the last guest I had on was also he was a stock investor and he was a wealth management fund guy, and he was out of Canada. And he had mentioned a lot of reasons why the dot-com bubble happened was not because it was a problem with the internet at the time. It was a problem with the market not being ready, right? So how much of this? Because what's interesting is there's a lot of people I interact with, and I'm like, hey, do you use ChatGPT? And they're like, what's ChatGPT? What is
Yeah,
ChatGPT?
no,
So
I use it all the time.
yeah, everyone, which almost any business owner can, because now it can literally condense. In our business, what would take us usually about maybe 2 to 3 weeks or 40 hours of work per staff can be condensed in 30 minutes, right? Because AI could just write the copy for you. Now, how much of it do you think there might be an AI bubble, like an AI.com bubble, because the market might not be ready for it?
Um, that's a complicated question to answer because I think the market dynamics are pretty different now from the first dot-com bubble. Now,
Okay,
there's an interesting evolution. Do you want to nerd out about this for a moment?
absolutely.
Yeah, cool. I love nerding out about this. So,
Yeah.
the dot-com bubble happened at a time when it was actually very hard to develop software. And a lot of the methodologies we are using today didn't really exist. Like people didn't have the web development frameworks and platforms to develop quickly. So that meant that everything you wanted to do, you had to develop from scratch. There was no
Mm.
such thing as a content management platform. Like if you use Squarespace now, you don't know how good you have it. If you use Shopify, like Shopify in itself is genius, right? Before Shopify, like imagine you had to build a web store. You have to figure out payment
Mm-hmm.
processing. You have to figure out address validation. You have to figure out inventory management. You have to figure out
Mm.
the design. You have to figure out the pictures. They have to be dynamically resized, right? Shopify does so many things out of the box that I've actually had to develop in one of my previous roles before. And it is insane. It is insane how much time that takes. So in that dot-com bubble, what ended up happening, like a famous one is pets.com. Another famous one was the Webvan. Webvan was a grocery store essentially that was raised tons and tons of money. And before they even made a single sale, they had to build an entire ecosystem and infrastructure. So they had to go to the shop and buy literal servers. They had to install them in a rack. They had to put internet in this server room. They had to develop all the software completely from scratch because there was nothing to base it on. And then they had to go and build out an entire cooled warehouse. They spent a god awful amount of money putting in like full on warehousing systems with automation and robots and all that kind of stuff. They spent millions and millions and millions of dollars, filled the warehouse with avocados and bananas and rice and God knows what. And then they were like, okay, now we're ready. People can buy groceries online. And the 6 people who had internet were like, nah, I'm good actually. I'll just go to Safeway.
Mm.
Now, right, that's essentially what happened in dot-com bubble. Like people had to spend so much money developing all these products and services and having the warehouse and having the stock and all that kind of stuff. And then they realized there weren't enough customers because the people who did have internet were like, I don't really trust the internet. I don't want to buy on the internet, or certainly not on the regular.
Mm.
Today, if you want to develop something like that, things are super, super different. You can stand up a web shop in 20 minutes by using Shopify. You can send text messages to people in 10 minutes using Twilio. You can set up a virtual shop. Like the way I would do it now to figure out if Webvan was a good idea, you grab Shopify, you put it online, you put some inventory in, somebody buys something, I go to Safeway, I bring it to them. I don't have to build a whole warehouse. I can just like, it's called a concierge MVP. It's like, will people do this? So that has
Mm.
massively shifted. The other thing that now exists is AWS, Amazon Web Services. That
Mm-hmm.
means that you don't have to buy your own servers, right? You can rent space on their servers and they take care of the maintenance, backups, all that kind of stuff. That used to be 6 people's jobs in the old days. And
Mm.
so all these efficiencies are happening all at the same time, which means that running a startup now means that you can actually just plug a whole bunch of stuff together, Like, you're not going to develop your own payment processing. You'll use Square or Stripe or PayPal or God knows what, or Amazon Pay, right? These are all solutions. That means you don't have to have the incredible nightmare of dealing with credit cards. And so taking all these components and putting them together, now, if you were to build a dog walking app, the only thing you have to do is to actually build the front end. Like the user creation, you can grab off the shelf. The payment processing, you can grab off the shelf. A lot of the design stuff, you can grab off the shelf. You need your brand. You need the logic that connects it all together. And maybe you need customer support. But building something like that today is so much faster than before. And that massively de-risks it, right? You can build Webvan with probably $50,000. You don't have to spend $50 million. And that shift has been very interesting from a VC point of view, because it means that if I'm investing in something, I can say, hey, like, what is the smallest amount of work you can do to prove or disprove what you're trying to do? Like, build an MVP. Prove to me that people want this. Prove to me that you can find your customers at a reasonable cost, and prove to me that they're willing to spend money on what you're selling. So that's all shifted. And so I think with AI, we're starting to see the same thing. People are very clearly seeing benefits in AI already. And so they're willing to use it for that reason.
Interesting.